historical shade between Baltimore and Indy, moved the entire franchise overnight under the cover of darkness, moved the franchise from Maryland to Indiana. That name doesn't make no sense. The Indianapolis Colts? No, the Baltimore Colts. Pimlico is right down the street. It's the Baltimore Colts. They don't know about horses in Indianapolis. They know about cars. It's Hoosier country. It ain't horse country. The average franchise value was around $850 million. If the money doesn't go to Lamar Jackson, where the hell is that money going? Give Lamar Jackson and everybody else a guaranteed contract. Why not?
Because I went to the LeBron James of feet.
The LeBron James of feet. Like, let somebody else say that. Okay. You know, like,
Michael. I mean, why would he go to the second best podiatrist?
That's right, Kurt. All right, welcome to Brother from Another on a Tuesday. We got a lot going on today. I got to say this. It's not every day you talk to your co-host, you read your headlines, and you see your co-host in the news. So I'm seeing my co-host in the news, Jim Trotter. It's funny. It's like one of those things growing up. You used to read about people you knew growing up, and you find out things that you didn't really know in everyday conversation. You find out their real name, depending on where you grew up. You know, somebody was known by something like, why'd they call him that? Oh, that's his name? Oh, we just call him Peanut. Oh, we didn't know that. Anyway, they used your real name, Jim Trotter, but you have some news. They didn't use your real name.
They didn't use my given name. Yeah, they didn't use my given name.
Come on now, give us some news off the top. What's your given name?
No, it's nothing sexy. It's James. So my father goes by James. I was gonna say. You know, I go by Jim. And if you're a close family, then it's Jimmy. But that's it.
So this is close family here. We're Jim. We're Jimmy. We're James.
Jimmy.
So the news. You tell us. You tell us what you are comfortable sharing. You put this out on Twitter. And for those who are listening on Sirius XM Channel 85, you can't see it. Tweet from Jim Trotter. This will be my final week with the NFL Media Group. I was informed over the weekend that my contract is not being renewed. I thank NFL Network and NFL.com for the lessons learned and affirmed over the last 5 years. Jim Trotter, take it from here.
Yeah, no, they made a decision that they didn't want to renew my contract. I will have a lot to say about it at the appropriate time, which is not now. But the thing that I will say now is that journalism matters, and holding people who are in power accountable matters. And that's part of our job, regardless of if it's our own employer or someone else. And which is really all I tried to do here, Michael, is one of the things the NFL always said internally is hold us accountable. Hold us accountable as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so for the last couple of years, that's what I've been trying to do, pointing out that in our newsroom, where we cover a player population that is roughly 60 to 70% Black, according to league data, there is no Black person in senior management in our newsroom who has a seat at the table when we are deciding how we are going to cover these players and who is going to cover them. Secondarily, we do not have a full-time Black person on the news desk at NFL Media. And I keep saying we, because officially I'm not terminated until Friday. But to me, those are issues because, one, I think it's unfair to the players. They should have someone who shares either the same or similar life experiences and cultural experiences at the table when we talk about how we are going to cover them. And the fact that we don't, to me, it's an issue. So I have raised that repeatedly over the last 2 years, including at the last 2 Super Bowls with the commissioner. And there are some who didn't like it. And I do believe it played a role in my contract not being renewed. And I will talk about that more later. But so be it, you know. I'm not going to change. And I'm always going to fight for representation. And I'm always going to fight for the truth.
How many people have you tweeted? You couldn't get to all the replies. You know, roughly how many people have you heard from and double barrel on this? Any one of the people that, or anybody reach out to you that surprised you?
A lot of people. I've not counted. I've not looked at numbers. In fact, yesterday I didn't spend a lot of time on social media until later in the day. I was actually out in the yard pulling weeds for most of the day since I have extra time on my hands. So I didn't look at the number until later in the evening when I looked at some things and I saw, and this is what's kind of disturbing. Look, we know, I always say this, when you know who your opponent is, it's easy to game plan, right? And to some degree, that's what's happening here. So I knew the NFL in some way was going to try and mislead or misinform or deflect as it relates to this. And so on background, they are sending out information to reporters about all of the diversity hires that they have made over the last year or in 2022. And here's the thing, and you know this, Michael, that's a real sneaky way of hiding from what I am particularly focused on, and that is Black people. I'm not asking you about diversity numbers. I am asking you specifically about the numbers of Black employees in our newsroom. And you cannot argue those. And if they so choose, I have the receipts to show that I have talked to them about this and what they have said and acknowledged that my numbers are accurate. So from that standpoint, what was particularly interesting to me in the background information they sent out to one reporter was they made a point of saying Jim's immediate supervisor is a person of color. Person of color in this case does not mean Black, which is what I am focused on. My immediate supervisor is not Black, nor is anyone in senior management in the newsroom Black, nor is any full-time employee on the news desk Black. So I say to people, don't get fooled by the banana in the tailpipe. Stay focused on what I am focused on, and that is the NFL's treatment of Black employees.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's almost, and you don't have to address this part, but it almost seems like there's more work to kind of work around what you're talking about, to work it around, than it is to just say, all right, you bring up an excellent point. This is something that we need to work on. And how do you suggest? And listen, we'll be right there with you. You can work alongside us. We will keep you in the loop. You will be in on interviews, give us names, give us situations that can help us. We're going to do this and do that. It would be easier to do that than to go through like this whole sideways off-roading thing that they're doing just to make a point that I'm not really sure that they're making successfully. I got to tell you this. I was talking to, I mentioned this name earlier on the show, before on the show. His name is Howard Thurman. Great man. If you've never heard of Howard Thurman, look him up. But I was talking to somebody about Howard Thurman, and Thurman really was about love, and he said love and courage. He said a lot of situations just take your courage. It takes your courage to get through it. And I could see what you were doing, and it's courageous. You may not look at it that way. I think what you have done, what you are doing, is courageous, and it really speaks to what you value. You don't value the same things that they do. You don't value some of the same things that people from the outside looking in do. Because I made the mistake, Jim. I shouldn't do this. I'm always here for the comments, and I read through the comments. Okay. All right. It's one of my
That's
vices.
always dangerous, man.
It's always dangerous. So I read through the comments. So some of the commenters, it's always the job. See, that's how we get into trouble. It's like, the job is everything. The job is holy to them. It's holy to them. So in other words, do anything to me, say anything to me, say anything about me, distort the facts. Hey, well, as long as I got the job, because the job is all I need. That's what they value. If you put that in a comment, and it wasn't just one, it was several commenters really said, well, that's what happens. Well, you got to do this with the job. And you don't look at it that way. And I could see for the past year or year and a half that you had a pretty good idea how things could go if you continue to be yourself, and yet you continue to be yourself. So I applaud you for that.
And I say, Michael, I appreciate that, by the way. The two things that disappoint me most in this whole process, if I can be 100% honest, is number one, all I was simply trying to do was make the company better. So when you say diversity, equity, and inclusion are core principles in the NFL and it's good business, all I am trying to do then is help this company be better by saying, then let's be diversified, and Black people are part of that, and therefore make them feel valued as well. The second thing I will say to you, and this is what disappoints me most since I have put this out, I got a call yesterday from a member of the Black Engagement Network, which is a community within the NFL of Black employees, right? And this person said to me that they had been talking about this since I put it out that I was not being renewed, and said everyone is demoralized, and said they feel like if this can happen to you, then they know it can happen to them, which means that they can't speak up on this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion when the league says, hold us accountable. And look, that's a tried and true tactic of major corporations to intimidate employees. And that's what I feel bad about here, is that there are some brilliant people within the NFL media group. There are brilliant Black people within the NFL media group, and they deserve an opportunity to be able to climb the ladder and to be in these management positions and whatnot. And yet now some of them feel that if they speak out on this, that they will face retribution. And that's unfortunate. And I would say this to the NFL: if you really feel comfortable about what you've done in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, put out your numbers for each demographic group on retention and promotion, and let's compare those numbers. And then we'll see how you really feel about Black people. Because I don't need to see hashtags in the end zone of end racism, and I don't need to see Black Lives Matter on the back of helmets. If you really want to show me how you feel about Black people, let's take a look at your retention and promotion rates of Black people within the company, and then we can have a conversation.
So the commissioner who said Black Lives Matter from his basement in a video is overseeing an NFL media that has no Black Lives Mattering when it comes to news decision making. That's just interesting to me. That's very interesting.
But he doesn't manage the newsroom, right?
But
right?
It's all
that was
under
his
the
comment,
umbrella.
right?
You're right.
As I told you, this is what I wanted to follow up with him on when he said that. Technically, he's right. He does not manage the newsroom. But here's what we know. The league office sets the budget for the newsroom. The league office sets the head count for the newsroom. The senior manager in the newsroom reports to the league office and must report his diversity numbers. So if we have all of that, and you say you don't manage the newsroom and you don't know, is that because you don't want to know? Is that because you don't care? I'm just asking, because as I said to you at the Super Bowl, over the last year and a half, no one from the league office has reached out to me when I had brought these issues up.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. Look, Jim, we know this. It's not just the NFL, but it is the NFL and other corporations. A lot of them know what to say. They know what to say. They know how it sounds. Hey, we are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want it to be equitable. We will do this. We'll do that. We want people to be seen. Like all the little buzzwords and buzz phrases.
We'll play the Black National Anthem.
Yeah, or whatever it is. They'll say what sounds good. They will do what looks good, but ultimately it comes down to what have you done? Where's your production? It's a business of production. What have you done? How are you better now since the reckoning? Remember, we all talked about the reckoning. We didn't talk about it. Black folks didn't talk about it. Let's be honest. Black folks didn't talk about it. There was this reckoning. It was supposed to be a reckoning after the murder of George Floyd, right? In 2020. There's just going to be this reckoning. And then that's where Roger Goodell said, oh, now I get it. Now that's right. Our players are right. We support our players. Black Lives Matter. Yes, we will work with you. All these things. So we're coming up on 3 years. 3 years since the murder of George Floyd. Where does the NFL stand with its numbers? Where do other corporations who put out statements and made all the, we're going to have seminars and listening sessions. We're going to bring in this person, bring in this speaker. We have counseling for those who need it. We know it's traumatic. Where do you stand as a corporation 3 years later, honestly? And this is not to shame anybody. It's just like, okay, are you about it or not? Because if you're not about it, it's easier. It's easier to understand you and deal with you. I know who's not about it, but don't say you are. Exactly. And then just keep doing what you did before. And the last thing I'll say, before we talk to the one and only Reeta Hubbard in a few minutes. Last thing I'll say is I saw a great James Baldwin documentary last night, James Baldwin Abroad. So it's like 3 short films focused on Baldwin. Baldwin in Istanbul, Baldwin in Paris, Baldwin in London. And one of them, the one in London, it was Baldwin and Dick Gregory, if you can imagine, those two together in conversation. Oh, yeah, it was phenomenal.
To be a fly on the wall.
But I know, but at the very end, because it was primarily Baldwin, at the very end, Dick Gregory said had some comments, and Gregory said, there are some black folks who tell us we shouldn't be protesting, but as a result of their protest, they become the first black medical director of this hospital or whatever. So, Jim Trotter, I don't know what you're going to do next, but I do know somebody who is deserving, but somebody deserving is going to get promoted. Somebody deserving is going to get a position based on what you have illuminated the last couple of years. So know that what you have done, this is not work in vain. We're watching you. We support you, and people are going to benefit from what you've said and what you've made happen. So I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you, man. That means a lot, truly.
Lamar Jackson is not, he's a free agent. Has there been any internal discussions, within the organization about perhaps pursuing him? And what do you think, what is your level of interest, if any?
Yeah, well, first of all, Lamar Jackson's a fantastic player. But, where we stand is, it would be disingenuous and negotiating in bad faith if we went down that path. So right now we have our plan, we have our process, and we're sticking to that.
All right, it's Joe Douglas, general manager of the Jets, and we understand where he's coming from. Okay, he's got an excuse. He got a pass. Reeta, he gets a hall pass. Hey, where are you on Lamar Jackson? Okay, hall pass. We're about to get Aaron Rodgers. Okay, keep going. Next. I understand what he's saying. I don't understand a lot of other people, but we'll get to that. What I want to know from you, Reeta, is how is it playing in Baltimore now that Lamar has gone on a tweet storm and said, oh, you know what? I asked for a trade on March 2nd because the Ravens don't really value me the way a brother needs to be valued. How's that playing in Baltimore?
I mean, obviously, it's not playing well, right? Nobody wants to go to what it's like without a quarterback, particularly in this division, particularly in the conference of the AFC. So obviously, Lamar is loved by a lot of people in this town. And so nobody wants to hear that their favorite person on their favorite team doesn't want to be there anymore because they don't feel like that they're valued. And so it's played out the way that you would suggest. I mean, that you would think. It's just hasn't bode well, understandably so. And, you really hope that, okay, he said what he said, but then we also heard that they were still having negotiations as early as last week. You hope that they can come to terms with something. But I really feel like this is a situation where Lamar saw that nobody put in an offer sheet. So if he put that out there, it allows him to teams to at least bite. And it does feel like since he said that, we've been hearing Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay of the Colts kind of playing around with the idea of it. So maybe this is his way of trying to get the needle moved a little bit to see if someone could bolster up an offer, or if it's really just him wanting a trade out of Baltimore. But it really just feels like this is a money situation, which to me is salvageable if you pay someone what they believe that they're worth, or at least close proximity to it.
See, Reeta, I may be a little jaded from all my years covering this league, but when I heard Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay, what I heard was the league's voice in their head saying, we need at least one team to say they have interest in Lamar so we can fight off any collusion claims. That's what I heard. So if Indy is serious about it, then talk to Lamar and find out what Lamar wants. Short of that, to me, didn't mean anything.
I agree with that. I do think, because I felt that way, Jim, when the Raiders came out. Like as soon as, the availability for the non-exclusive tag, they mentioned it. And the Raiders was one of the teams that was like, oh, well, we're not going to take away the option of Lamar Jackson, which a lot of us knew that the Raiders probably weren't in it from a financial perspective. So to me, that was BS as well. So when we heard Irsay and them speak, I agree with you. I said the same thing. It's just ironic that that was the team who does have the number 4 overall pick, who does have cap space, said what they said, because even in that situation, it does feel like it's a potential go in that regard, like a good fit in terms of draft capital for the Ravens, in terms of the money that they have. But then you hear Jim Irsay go and say, money is not the issue. I just don't like fully guaranteed contracts. So that's how you know that they're just like, yeah, I'm just BSing here a little bit. I'm just putting my hand out there and saying that that's what I'm going to do, but I ain't going to really do it. But I feel like I should just play around and play along with what's going on right now.
Okay.
See, can I say this real quick, Mark?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Until I hear Lamar Jackson say, my contract must be fully guaranteed.
Right.
Yes.
I don't buy any of this, right?
That's
Too
what I
many
was
people
going to say.
speaking for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Jim. One, for Jim Irsay, okay, you don't like fully guaranteed contracts. When's the last time you talked to Lamar? Like, you talked to Lamar? So where's this information coming from? That's why it is collusion. Where are they getting their information from? We know where they're getting their information from. They're getting it from Baltimore. So for a guy who doesn't have an agent, and you haven't talked to him, and yet you're saying this with confidence, okay, give me your source. Hey, as a journalist, I'm not supposed to, unless I'm your editor, I'm not supposed to ask you for your sources. I'm going to ask you for your sources, though, Jim Irsay. Right. Where are your sources? Because we know. And that's why we're having this situation right now. But that aside, it's funny that these billionaires don't want to guarantee contracts for anybody. Why not? And why aren't fans pushing for that? But that aside, Reeta, on that list, can we bring up that list again, Gary, of the 11, possible destinations or logical destinations for Lamar Jackson? I'm wondering from a Baltimore perspective, because I just want to know, just from what you've observed and heard, what folks think of these 11 teams on the list. Which one would drive Ravens fans the craziest if Lamar Jackson wound up there? So
you have to go with the Colts, right? Because there's history there. There's obvious history there. There's very rich history there. And Jim Irsay is in the middle, or his father. His father was in the middle of this history. And while there's a lot of people that are too young to remember, I ain't gonna tell my age, but I was alive when it happened, when they rolled out in the middle of the night. I was alive. I was still very young. But you have generations of people like my dad who will constantly remind you of what happened in that situation. So that's one. Two is the Commanders, because Baltimore and DC do not get along. I know that they're 45 minutes apart, Baltimore is not the DMV. I want to be clear here. And so we do not rock with the people down the street. They don't rock with the people up the street. So the Commanders would be annoying. Of course, you got to say the Patriots, because the Ravens and the Patriots for years had a rivalry thing going on, even though they weren't in the same division, but they played, playoff games together. They played a lot of high profile games over the years. So that's definitely one. I think the others, you just kind of like, But those three, in that order, by the way, I put it in the order in which I believe that the fans would hate it the most, are the ones that Ravens fans would definitely be like, okay, this hurts. This stings.
And you know what? And you know what? I love that, Reeta. We don't mess with people down the street. They don't mess with us. Okay, fine. You stay over there.
That's right.
We'll stay over here. All right, like, leave us alone. We ain't even trying to holler at you across the chain link fence. But let me ask you this. This is funny. Today, I'm told, is the 39-year anniversary of Robert Irsay.
Yep.
Sneaking out of town.
Yep.
Sneaking out of town with the Baltimore Colts and turning them into the Indianapolis Colts. A dark day in the state of Maryland.
Yes. My dad will never, my father, and rest his soul, my grandfather, would never let you live it down, okay? My dad still has tons of Colts memorabilia. Now, mind you, he's a big Ravens fan. He has definitely, adapted to what they are now. But my father was one of the heartbreakers that the Colts dealt with in terms of fans that left. He still has his Johnny Unitas photo hanged up. He has a photo of Lenny Moore. He loves his Colts. And so I'm sure he knows about this day. I'm not going to bother him about it. I'm not going to bring it up. But I'm sure he knows it. At his big age, and I'm sure he's over there reminiscing, looking at old videos and old photos. And also, my grandfather went to the game, the greatest game I've ever played, that championship game against the Giants. So there's a lot of history. My family, like, being huge Colts fans. So yeah, that was a devastating day in my household.
Oh, I love that, man. Just hearing about your family and the history. Yeah.
Yeah, my grandfather absolutely went. There's some great memories, took some pictures, so it was dope. So yeah, I'm glad that they finally had an opportunity to root for somebody else, because they weren't going to root for the team down the street, like I told y'all. And they weren't going to root for the team over west, which is the Steelers. So, and they tried to make you be Dolphins fans back in the day. They used to play Dolphins games a lot on CBS. So they never wavered. They waited till 96, got their team, and then, the rest is history.
You know what, Jim and Reeta, and tell me if I'm just exaggerating on this so much. When you were a kid, and how to get you, it depends on who you heard this from. They wouldn't yell at you. They'd say, "You know what? I'm just disappointed." And I'm just disappointed, because I thought you'd give me more than that. So I guess I'm there with the Ravens. How the Ravens get to this situation where Lamar Jackson, the most important player in the franchise, is asking for a trade, and they're just kind of in this silly situation with Lamar. I just feel like it's so avoidable. I'm disappointed in the Ravens. I expect this from the Commanders, Texans, Browns. Certain franchises just stupid stuff over and over, just over and over. I'm like, of course it's y'all.
I don't know why you give them so much credit, because I've mentioned this before on this show that, what Joe Flacco also went through his 5th-year option, and obviously he won a Super Bowl on that, but they tried to, give him a deal that he didn't like in his 5th year, and he decided to play it out, and we know as a result that he got his contract after he won the Super Bowl. So this is their MO. I don't, I think that they have a standard that they go by, and that's fine. But what I'd say to that is that the league is constantly evolving. And if Lamar is telling you that he's not asking for a fully guaranteed deal, Is it simply that you guys both have lines that you just refuse to cross and that this is just an ego staring fest on both sides? Is it that the Ravens just feel like that they're too arrogant because they have the exclusive rights for him at the moment in terms of like having the tag on him and no one has put out an offer sheet? I don't know what's happening, but I just feel like you might be giving them a little bit too much credit because I've seen them do this before. This is not new as far as I'm concerned. It's just gone longer than what we've expected. But they've done this to Joe Flacco, who at that point had been the two previous AFC Championship game. His third year in the AFC Championship, obviously we know he went to a Super Bowl and then they paid him. So that's just how they are.
I love the history lesson. Love the history lesson. Because I'm with you, Michael. I'm that guy that thought the Ravens are one of those organizations that I held up and said, you know, basically they conduct their business, you know, above board, so to speak. But to Reeta's point, what I would like to know, if they both have these lines that we're talking about, I want to know what those lines are.
Yes.
Right? Because we're sitting out here, we're all speculating and whatnot, and we're drawing conclusions. And the emotional part of me says, look, I'm all with Lamar. You know that. I've said that he's my favorite player in the NFL. But the journalist part of me says, before I can make any sort of conclusion, come to any conclusion, I need to know what the facts are. So what are these lines that separate these two clubs? And until we hear that, is from a journalistic standpoint, it's hard to really draw any conclusion.
Okay, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you're right, Jim. But I was just thinking about this, developing thought, because I've been so focused on the collusion aspect of it that I haven't really thought about maybe some other factors with Lamar Jackson. Maybe it's the same thing that got Lamar Jackson drafted 32nd overall, even though he had a brilliant college career. It's a black quarterback. People don't get it. It's hard to understand his skill set. And so I'm not talking about the Ravens. I'm talking about the rest of the league. Because if I say to you, if Josh Allen says, hey, you know what? I'm out of Buffalo. I want out. I want a fully guaranteed contract. He's never won a Super Bowl either. He's got a good playoff record, but never won a Super Bowl. Josh Allen would have a deal. I think like most quarterbacks with the profile of Lamar Jackson would have a deal. There's collusion, there are collusive elements, but there's something else here too that makes me a little uncomfortable.
But to your point, Michael, and I have asked this question of GMs around the league that I know and I trust. Take Lamar's situation, right? Everything is exactly the same. It is what it is. But simply remove Lamar from the equation and put Joey Burrow in the equation. Would Joe Burrow get what he's asking for if it is indeed a fully guaranteed contract? And yes. What GMs have said to me is probably. So I can't remove this element of Lamar being treated differently because he is Lamar and because of some of the things you said. Because I do believe if Joey Burrow were the one in the exact same situation, exact same background, he would get that fully guaranteed contract.
I do think that Lamar is a player that people can't put in a box. And because of that, it's very difficult to evaluate him in terms of value. And it's not difficult to us, right? Because all we see is the talent portion of it. Forget all of the other things about, him being a black quarterback, him, having a Southern accent and all these other things. We see him in terms of how he plays football. But I think that other people add those things in addition to him being a player, because when you see reports that were coming out yesterday and they were talking about his sleep and his eating habits, but nobody, talked about his character. Then why are we having this conversation? Because we can talk about a lot of quarterbacks who are out here doing certain things and not doing. Patrick Mahomes just told us,
and we celebrate them. We celebrate them.
We do. He told us that he didn't even watch film and that he just started seeing defenses differently because he's seeing film differently now. He was literally using his ability, his God's gift ability to play football, and then decided he wanted to take it another step and read defenses better. And yet we thought that was a cool story But somehow, because Lamar has one playoff win, I guess, we keep saying, oh, well, he eats weird and he sleeps weird. And we're coming up with all of these excuses. And it's just very weird to me how we've gotten to this point. Do you like the way he plays quarterback? Does he win football games for your franchise? Yes or no? Because really, to me, that's the bottom line. He's a good kid. He doesn't get in trouble. Okay, so he has some bad habits. Those things can be fixed. Those are fixable things, right? It doesn't affect his play to a degree. It doesn't affect his character either. I just don't understand why this is such a big deal. So I agree with that. I just really feel like this is just an unfortunate situation that not only the Ravens, because no one else has stuck their neck out and said, I'm going to go ahead and take a chance, are all seeing this the same way. It's really unfortunate.
Well, Reeta, great stuff as usual. This is what it comes down to for NFL owners. They want a lot of money.
Yep.
And they want a lot of control. They want a lot of money. They want a lot of control. So when Lamar Jackson asks for a lot of money, they're going to keep their money and they're going to keep their control, because if he breaks the code, ooh, we got a new day with guaranteed contracts. So they're shutting them out.
This is why Joey Burrow and Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts all need to say no fully guaranteed contract, no extension.
Absolutely. He got to get guys
and you will
in
change the
his army.
landscape.
Got to build his army. As soon as he does that, he rolling.
Sometimes, Jim Trotter, it takes one person to step out to make it easier for everybody else. Oh, I'm preaching today. I'm preaching today.
It's like we can't celebrate people. The league's in a great place. It really is. It's in an amazing place. We got Joel Embiid and Joker, two centers in a non-center league, dominating the league. We got Giannis, and I always put him as a whatever, because we don't know what Giannis is. He's just one of the best players in the league. Jason Tatum is playing unbelievable. Kevin Durant, if he wasn't, I mean, you can just keep going. And I really believe this is the best the league's been in a long, long time. And you can like them all. You can actually not like one because you love the other one, but you don't have to hate on anybody.
Oh, that was Sixers coach Doc Rivers. And as I said in the feed, Ash and Nicole Moss, it's the right words for the wrong audience. And maybe that's the right audience right there that he was talking to. But these MVP voters in these streets are divided. They will tear the other one apart to celebrate their person. They will tear people down. Some of the accusations, some of the arguments are crazy. Ashley, how did the MVP discussion become so contentious?
Because it's so fluid and it changes from season to season. One year, what the criteria for MVP is different than the following year. So when something's so fluid like that, it leaves a lot of room for discussion and debate and pushback. We've seen, Steph Curry be in the conversation for the same reasons that Dame Lillard was never in the conversation. We've seen, other players be in the conversation for reasons those players weren't in the conversation. So it seems like it's a case-by-case, season-by-season basis, which is fine. But if you're going to do something like that, then you need to generalize the criteria enough to where there is still some sort of a regulation. If you play this amount of games, you can be in the running. If you don't meet that amount of games, you can't be in the running. If your team's not within, these 4 or 5 positions within the standings, you can be in the running. If not, you can't be. We can't move the goalposts, as we like to use that terminology a lot, whenever it's convenient, whenever our favorite, is having a great season, but they're on a losing team. I feel like it's a little bit of the favoritism game. And whenever you start doing that, it becomes a popularity contest. You're always going to have conversations like this.
As I saw those clips that producer Gary Carter put up, tell me, Ashley, I just feel this is part of what bothers me about my profession, is that we can be so disrespectful to these players. And to use terms like Embiid is ducking Jokic. I mean, that attacks that man's athletic character, you know? And I just feel that that's wrong. Because I believe personally, without even knowing the man, but just watching him play, that if he's healthy or he's right, he's going to be on the court and he's going to relish the opportunity to play against someone who is considered to be maybe the front runner for MVP. So I'm curious about your thoughts about how, if you feel that same way, that we do disrespect these players by at times questioning their athletic character when really there's nothing in their history that reflects that.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, and I've always been accused of being too pro player, but I'm very careful on the words that I use to describe players, whether, it's their performance or them as individuals, because I think that part of the problem within the sports media landscape is that we have gotten away from humanizing players. And we kind of get a little egregious with the words that we use to describe them or describe the things that they're doing. So I'm very particular about, not doing that. But I will say that, listen, does it look great that Joel Embiid didn't play against Jokic? No. Is there a better way to vocalize that? Yes. Does that or should that negate everything he has done throughout an entire season? No. Will it for the hot take community? Yes. It's just, the nature of the beast. But you cannot negate an entire MVP caliber season off of the fact that he didn't go ahead and play against one of his fellow MVP candidates. That's not quite how it works. There's an 82-game season for a reason. One game doesn't make or break his entire resume within the course of a season. It's a little bit, exaggeratory and a little bit just, come on, really, are we doing this? But then again, I understand it's the nature of the beast. But I'm agreeing with you 100%. I don't like the terminology that is sometimes used to describe players and the way that they play the game. Not a fan.
All right, so let's see if Vinny Goodwill is the outlier here. So I was talking to him last week. I said, all right, Vinny, I said, for MVPs, I really can't tell you from memory. I can't tell you who won in a certain year going back. Now, in the finals, like champions, NBA champions, I got it. Like you throw out a year, throw out a year right now. Throw out a year right now, and I'll tell you who won
1999.
Oh, okay, that was the lockout year. You know who won? The Spurs. The Spurs, they beat the Knicks. They beat the Knicks, and they beat them at the Garden in the clincher. I was there. I covered that one. Anyway, so I got that stuff. It's in my head. But MVPs, I don't have it like that. And my point is does it really, I don't want to say it's an insignificant award. It's not. It's a very important award. But we're talking about it like lives are going to change and like is it really, is it that serious? What am I missing? Am I missing something? Is it that serious?
It's a bragging rights award, right? It's one of those awards that you can say you were the best player of all the teams in the NBA, of all the players in the NBA, you were the very best. It is somewhat of a prestigious award. It's like being the MVP of the NFL and, the MVP of any league. It's saying of all the people that play that sport and have dedicated their lives to the sport, you were the very best that season. So I wouldn't say it means nothing, but I feel like the discourse within the award has gotten bigger than the award itself, if that makes sense. I feel like the conversations surrounding it and how just they have become almost these think pieces. It's not that deep. Who's the best basketball player that season? Give them the award. The way that we're diving into race theory and bias theory and all these just collegiate just theories that I've learned in lecture classes is just a little bit over the top for me. We're not solving.
Hey, listen.
We're not solving the environmental crisis here. We're giving out an MVP award to a basketball player. Let's pump our brakes a little bit. It's not that.
Don't be going at the academy. Don't be going at the academy here, Ashley. Is it that deep, Trotter?
The thing for me is that it's a lot like Hall of Fame voting. Because there are no criteria to tell you what defines a Hall of Famer or what defines an MVP, it's open to interpretation for every different voter. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with are things like what Ashley just pointed out is we're going to say it comes down to one game where Joel Embiid says, I've been playing sloppy. I've been playing a lot of minutes, which means I'm tired. I need to be geared up for the playoffs. And so he's looking towards the big picture as opposed to this one game. And then we say things like, well, he's out of the MVP race because he didn't play this one game.
Which is crazy.
It's just, for me, it's just so disrespectful to him. And I get we live in the hot take culture where, you know, we got to have something to talk about and that sort of thing. But what bothers me, too, is that when you have former professional athletes who use certain words that are triggering, you know, and should know better. Perk should know better than to talk about ducking. I mean, that's such an insult to an athlete of Joel's stature, in my opinion. And, you know, that's just how I feel about it.
Let me switch up and talk to you guys about the NCAA tournament. First, you can go ahead and shout out where you know, what school you're going for.
Shout out to them boys from Boca, FAU, Owls up. We here. What's up, Final Four? That's what's good.
Look, you know, Michael, behind my head is my helmet from Howard University, my beloved university. But I also teach. I also teach at San Diego State, and therefore I am pulling for the Aztecs against Miss Ashley's club. So if you want to put a little something on it, Ash, if you feel that confident about your boy.
One thing about me is I never bet for or against my own team because I feel like it puts bad juju on it. I just let the basketball gods do what they do, and I stay clear of it. I don't try to interfere. I will not be placing any bets on any game with the word FAU in it. Absolutely not.
And see, then you took me out of it because I was going to say, we can't be doing any $700 sunglasses, though, right? Right? Some of us can't roll like that, right?
I'm going to be fully honest with you guys. I ain't paying that debt. I refuse. Just on principle alone. I'm not going to do it.
Hey, I see y'all having so much fun. I just want to point out, you know, Boston University is also in the Final Four. Like, nobody's talking about BU. I know what the Frozen for. It's hockey.
I was gonna say hockey.
I know y'all ain't down with hockey. Is that what it is? You got nothing to say. You got a kind word.
I didn't see it in your feed, Mr. Holley. So it can't be that big a deal if it wasn't in your feed.
It's right there. It's right there. Where? It's right there in the feed. It's right. Look at that. Boston University is in the Final Four too.
No. I need to see the feed, not the Chiron.
Not the lower third. Where's the feed?
Yeah. It's in the feed too. Just check it out. You'll see it. Hey, you know what? Hey, listen, Gary. Can you put my feed up on the screen? Can you put my feed up so Jim and Ashley can see it? You know, now they doubt me. Now I put it down there pretty low. Obviously a little tongue in cheek. There it is. Look at that. Between Doc Rivers and the Brooklyn Nets. I think it's number 8. There it is.
Listen, I also want to take this moment just to switch gears a little bit and say that, Jim, the NFL world, they lost a good one. They lost a real one, but all good. Real ones always bounce back. So just wanted to go ahead and say that. Listen, they lost a real one.
I appreciate you, sister, and I'm not going anywhere. So my voice will be even louder going forward. Trust me on that.
I love to hear it. Small comeback for, what is it? Small setback for a major comeback? I don't know. I always mess up quotes. Yeah, there you go. I'm from New York. The Italian side of me will always mess up a saying. I get that from my mom. Like,
it's all good. I appreciate you sincerely.
Now I want to ask you guys this before we get you out of here. And you know, I know Dawn Staley mentioned the coverage of women's basketball, and you know, Natalie has talked about this too, saying, "Hey, Aaliyah Boston's still not getting enough credit." I say, "Hey, Aaliyah Boston's gonna be the number 1 pick in the draft, and they're undefeated." Still not enough, says Natalie. So, Ashley, I'll start with you. Staley, displeased with the media coverage. Do you think she has a case?
Yeah, she absolutely does. I mean, has it gotten better? Yes. I'm not going to say there hasn't been progress, but I feel like the product is so superior and just so high quality that it's not getting the same coverage that it deserves for something of that caliber, right? You look at everything that is put into the men's tournament and the exposure and the conversations and the ads, and as it should be, it's a great great product. It brings a lot of eyes. But if you've been watching the women, they are hooping. They're having some incredible games. There's trash talk. There's beef. There's rivalries. They're going at it. I mean, it is a absolutely incredible product. And for it to not go ahead and get the same type of backing that you would expect from, you know, the sports world is a business, right? And in any business, you put your money behind something that is a great product and that a lot of people are going to tune in to watch, and that goes ahead and broadcasts a great product to people who aren't there to watch in person. Except when it comes to women's sports, that formula seems to change. And that is a problem because it's not an inferior product, but it's being treated like one.
Ash, real quick, we got like 30 seconds. I wanted to ask you about these people who try and create the narrative that Dawn Staley should go and take over a men's program to show just how good a coach she is. They were talking about Temple. I wonder your thoughts on that, because I just think that is so ridiculous for that to even be a point of discussion.
Women don't have to infiltrate men's sports to showcase how good they are at sports. And women don't have to infiltrate men's spaces to go ahead and showcase that they're just as good as the men or they belong where the men belong. We can showcase that in women's sports. We can showcase that in men's sports. It is not a factor of where she does it. The proof of what she brings to the table is in her resume, and that's all that matters. So if she decides to go into men's sports, great. But if she doesn't, it doesn't make her less than a men's coach, and it certainly doesn't make her less than a men's basketball player. And women in general, if they choose to exist in women's sports, it does not make them less than their male counterparts who are reporting on male sports. Let's leave it at that. We don't have to go ahead and prove our work.
We're almost in National Poetry Month. You know what they do at those poetry outings? There it is. Go ahead. Ashley Nicole Moss. Bringing it. And you know what? I think Trotter, I think I may have to roll with San Diego State though. Nothing personal, Ashley.
Oh, boo.
All right, Jim Trotter, a few seconds left. You know anybody on the San Diego State team, or is it just, hey, it's a university, I might as well go ahead and root for them? Any of your students?
I know of them.
Out there
no, none of my students, but my students are covering the Final Four. So from that standpoint, as I told them, enjoy it, have fun, soak in the moment, learn all you can.
And that's great. You check out their coverage and be like, you know what, it's a good job, but you could have asked a better follow-up question there. Or I heard you during the interview scrum. Always teaching, right?
That's what we do.
Love it. Hey,
Make them better.
We'll see you again here on this show, Jim Trotter. Thanks, man. Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.